You can learn something so fast, people will assume that you're cheating. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's possible. When we see others absorbing information effortlessly, we automatically label them as geniuses. We create these convenient excuses that let us off the hook. Oh, they were just born that way. Their brain is different. They have special talents I could never have. That's absolute nonsense. But learning something fast is possible if you know the right way to go about it. Imagine all the benefits waiting for you, like acing your exams, landing better job opportunities, mastering new skills quickly, and even getting ahead in your career. While there are people who genuinely qualify as geniuses, the vast majority don't fall into that category. The truth? They've simply mastered learning techniques that nobody taught them in school. So how do ordinary people achieve that genius-like learning ability? That's exactly what I'm going to break down for you today. The problem with learning. Let me be real with you. We all suck at learning, like actually suck at it. Think about it. From day one in school all the way to your cubicle job, what have we been doing? Read stuff, cram it into our brains, vomit it back out on some test or report, and move on. Rinse and repeat. You ever notice how you can study your ass off for an exam and then, boom, your mind goes completely blank once you sit down? Some random dude coughs or you start stressing, and suddenly it's like, what the hell did I even study? That's because society hasn't taught us to learn. It's taught us to be human copy-paste machines. Seriously though, can you remember anything useful from a class you took 3 years ago, last month, hell, even last week? Probably not. There's this dude, Hermann Ebbinghaus, a psychology expert, who figured out we forget like 70% of everything within 24 hours if we don't actually do something with that information. That's wild. No wonder all these college grads are saying, yeah, I spent 4 years and 50 grand learning stuff I can't even explain now. This is a classic illusion of mastery, where you think you know something because you remembered it long enough to pass a test, but that thing doesn't stick. Look, memorizing isn't completely useless. You need it sometimes, but calling memorization learning is like calling a screenshot photography. One's just passive info hoarding. The other's creating something in your brain. Simple. How to learn fast. So how do you actually learn fast? First, you gotta fix your broken mindset. I bet half of you watching right now are just trying to memorize what I'm saying instead of actually learning it. Not your fault though, we've all been conditioned this way. But you need to stop asking, what do I need to memorize? And start asking, what do I need to understand? Look, I get it, memorizing feels safe. It's gotten you through tests before, but let's call it what it is. It's a cheap shortcut that sets you up to fail later. It's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg and calling it fixed. Think about it for a second. Can you memorize Spanish? Can you memorize how to code? How about swimming or singing like Adele or flying a damn plane? Hell no. If your pilot announced they just memorized the flight manual last night, you'd be running off that plane faster than I skip YouTube ads. Real learning isn't stuffing your brain with random facts. It's making connections between ideas, applying what you know in different situations, and really keeping that knowledge in your head long term. The principle of active recall. Your brain's basically just a muscle, and like any muscle, you gotta train it properly. When you're passively reading notes or highlighting crap in textbooks, it's like watching some gym bro lift weights and somehow expecting your arms to get bigger. Makes zero sense, right? That's literally you working against how your brain learns. Active recall is when you're the one lifting the weights. You force your brain to pull up info without looking at your notes. Yeah, it's harder. It sucks more. It's like fumbling around in the dark. But the more you push yourself, the more that darkness clears up and your retention goes through the roof. Here's how to do this active recall thing. Finish a chapter, close that book, and write down whatever the hell you remember. Make some flashcards. Questions on one side, answers on the other. No cheating and peeking early. Try explaining the stuff to an imaginary kindergartner, or get a friend who'll call you out when you're talking nonsense. Connect different ideas without looking at your notes like a crutch. The principle of spaced repetition. There's another principle that'll help you learn fast, which is the spaced repetition principle. Your brain is hardwired to forget stuff. That's not a flaw, but it's a feature. Imagine remembering every random face you've walked past, every boring meal you've eaten, or every pointless conversation you've had. Your brain would be a dumpster fire of useless information. We've got two memory systems, short-term and long-term. Short-term memory is this tiny workspace that holds info for like 30 seconds or more. This memory is good enough to punch in a phone number. Long-term memory is your brain's permanent storage. To learn something, whether it's a skill, a language, or some complicated concept, that info needs to move from short-term to long-term. This is exactly where most people screw up. Spaced repetition works with your brain instead of against it. Instead of cramming like a maniac the night before, you study in smaller chunks spread out over time. Look at it this way. Two students start learning guitar the same week. The first dude practices intensely for 2 hours every Sunday, while the second dude practices just 15 minutes daily. 3 months later, the daily guy is playing complex stuff smoothly, while the Sunday crammer still can't switch between basic chords, even though they both put in the same total hours. This is why cramming feels productive but is garbage for long-term learning. When you study for 8 straight hours, your brain gets one signal that says, "This matters." But when you review the same stuff for 20 minutes every day for weeks, your brain gets multiple signals saying, "Yo, this is important enough to keep forever." Make things stick. Here's the real deal with learning. Actual learning happens when you connect new stuff to crap you already know. Your brain isn't some external hard drive storing random files. It's more like a giant messy web where everything's connected. When you're learning something new, ask yourself, what does this remind me of? How's this similar to stuff I already get? How's it different? Teachers, listen up. Want your students to remember things? Then stop with the boring memorization. If you're teaching Japanese, don't make them memorize word lists. Have them create wild personal stories connecting each word to something they already know. This works for science too. When you're trying to understand some complex scientific concept, find analogies in everyday life. Once these ideas click and feel natural, when you remember the analogy, you'll remember the concept. These mental hooks give new information something to grab onto in your brain. That's why teachers are always throwing analogies at you. Eliminate distractions. Hey, you might be watching this video and texting someone. You believe you're multitasking. Let me bust a myth real quick. Do you think you're a multitasker? You're not. Nobody is. Can you remember what I said a few seconds ago while your attention strayed? I doubt it. What we call multitasking is just rapidly switching between different tasks, and it's absolutely murdering your ability to learn anything. Every time your phone buzzes or some email pops up, your focus gets hijacked. It takes several minutes to fully get back into the zone after an interruption, and your mind's still probably wandering. Imagine trying to study right after getting dumped via text. Yeah, not happening. Use your brain's dopamine system. Learning is not so bad though. You can absolutely have fun while learning. What I've said so far might sound like a chore, so how about we bring some fun into this? You can hack your brain just like we talked about with active recall and spaced repetition. Your brain runs on dopamine. That's the chemical that drives motivation, pleasure, and learning. Once you figure out how to manipulate your dopamine system, learning goes from a boring chore to an addictive game. It's why apps like Duolingo and fitness trackers work. They've weaponized our brain chemistry against our laziness. Your brain dumps dopamine not just when you get a reward, but when you're expecting one. By creating quick feedback loops and visible progress, you can hack your motivation. So break learning into small chunks you can finish and get your dopamine hit. Make progress trackers you can see. Reward yourself for mini victories. Build learning streaks you don't want to break. Sleep and rest. A final piece to the learning fast puzzle is sleep and rest. It sounds simple, but it does a lot. If you're cutting sleep to cram more, you're shooting yourself in the foot. I don't make the rules. Science backs this up. Sleep isn't some optional luxury. It's literally when your brain locks in everything you've learned. Once you wake from sleep, you feel well put together and even able to link ideas better in your head. I have a first-hand experience where my brain gets foggy and seems to lag if I avoid sleep. And no, I don't recommend constant coffee and energy drinks. It'll only harm your body and brain in the future. You should also consider that during deep sleep, your brain's busy converting all that short-term stuff into long-term knowledge through this process called memory consolidation. But sleep isn't the only rest you need. Your brain needs breaks during the day too. Take advantage of that diffuse mode, thinking that happens during walks, showers, or mindless activities. It often solves problems your focused, concentrated mode can't figure out. Many people have gotten their aha moment while doing things not related to whatever they're focused on. From me to you, those all-night study marathons, they're garbage. And here's another thing to help you. Don't wait until the night before your exam to study. That's just wrong. Study right after you learn new stuff. Trying to cram your entire syllabus the night before is completely ridiculous. But once you start using everything we've talked about, you'll notice your exam anxiety drops, and all you need is a quick review to crush those exams and master a new skill. So what does all this mean? If you want to permanently learn anything, probably anatomy for med school, code for some programming language, or vocabulary for your trip, you need to work with your brain's biology, not against it, and fix your mindset. It's all literally in your head. Exercise your brain properly and rest. You'll be shocked at how fast you start learning new things. Before you know it, you'll have mastered the things you once thought you couldn't.